Good afternoon. It's afternoon already. My goodness. Okay. I guess that would be true because I'm having like a midday snack. But anyway, I thought I would add this in because I guess it just came across my plate and I wanted to get the listing information for it. It's about myasthenia gravis. Okay. So you could have myasthenia gravis, which is a listing if you meet the listing. Otherwise, you would still pursue disability on a non-listing basis, which would be that residual functional capacity assessment and that whole determination. Okay, so interesting, myasthenia gravis is one of my first disability cases. So it's near and dear to my heart. So under the listings, it's under the neurological ones, and it's 11.12, myasthenia gravis. So there's 3 ways to meet the listing. I'm going to give it to you really generally because it gets really complicated and medical. And that's really, if you have myasthenia gravis and you think this might apply after I go through it, you'd want to take this listing to your doctor and he can provide all the tests and his findings that would show that this listing is met based on the fact of him reading it and seeing what it demands. So, okay, so it's A, B, or C. And A says disorganization of motor function in 2 extremities, resulting in an extreme limitation in the ability to stand from a seated position, so standing up from being seated, balance yourself while standing or walking, or an extreme limitation in using your upper extremities. So if you have that disorganization of motor function in 2 extremities that result in that, then that would be meeting number A, and then you could stop there. Otherwise, you can go on to B and see if B meets the listing. And also, they give you more detail, by the way, for A in 11.00 D1 and D2. So these are all things you can find out if you simply search, SSA.gov listings. It's going to bring you to listings and you're going to look for 11.12. And then from there are actually links to 11.00 D1 and D2 under section A that we just described. Okay, so let's say section A isn't cutting it for you. B refers to the bulbar or neuromuscular dysfunction, and it tells you to look at 11.00 F for more details on that. And if you have that dysfunction and it has to result in one of 2 things. The first one is myasthenia crisis, which requires mechanical ventilation. So now we're talking about really severe breathing problems where you need to be on mechanical ventilation to breathe. And it's one crisis. It doesn't mean you have to be on there forever. So if you've had one, you might want to take a closer look at this one. Or 2, if you need to have supplemental enteral nutrition, that would be a central venous catheter. It could be via gastronomy or parenteral nutrition, either way, but it's going to be kind of like mechanical nutrition. And that would be when you have that eating, swallowing problem or potentially breathing problem. But, when that part of the bodily needs need to be done in this mechanical format with a catheter, that would be where B would come in. Or again, under B, if you have a crisis where you require mechanical ventilation. And again, one crisis, you don't have to be living on that forever. So it probably has to be near enough in time, obviously, but take a look at that and see the last one. This is a real much broader open-ended one that we see most of the time. A marked limitation in physical functioning in one of the following 4 areas. And these are all of the mental areas that we use and a million other things that usually concern mental challenges, cognitive challenges, mental health conditions, but it can also be the result of myasthenia gravis, severe myasthenia gravis. This would be under the first one, understanding, remembering, or applying information. And they give you a link to further details on that, which would be another section within the listings that solidifies what that means. Number 2, interacting with others. And they give a section where you can find out more about that. That has to do with, maybe not being too distracted with others, reacting appropriately, not distracting them, or, being distracted by them. It's the ability to interact with coworkers, the public, and superiors, on the job. Number 3, concentrating, persisting, or maintaining pace. This one I think is always really important, because when we are severely fatigued or weakened, which myasthenia gravis can give you a heavy load of that, I think the likelihood of a significant, and it says market. By the way, market is a term of art. And again, I told you they give you descriptions, 11.00G2 for more definition on what market means. It's not extreme, but nor is it moderate or mild. So it's got to be pretty significant to wipe out all jobs under a listing, so to speak. So, but again, and maintaining pace, that's like a speed at which we do things, think things. I mean, if we can get from A to point B, but it takes us 5 times as long as a person without the affliction, like an average worker, is that market? Some might say it is. I think it is. But of course, it's going to be up to the SSA and whether your provider describes it as market. And again, it has to be extreme. It doesn't have to be where you have no ability to maintain any pace or persist in any manner or concentrate in any manner, but it has to be pretty markedly interrupted. And the last one is adapting or managing oneself. This would be taking care of your basic needs, remembering to bathe, hygiene, being able to change routine when needed on even a simple job. Can you adapt to that change? And assuming it's simple, we're not talking about a rocket scientist job. They're always kind of talking about the lowest of skilled work, unskilled work. So changing of routine, it could be recognizing workplace hazards and avoiding them. And since one's not working, one says, well, how could we make an opinion because the person's not working? It could be whether they can notice it in their everyday private life too. Is it the person that doesn't notice, when crossing the street that the light is red and they're not supposed to be crossing? I'm giving you an obvious example, but that kind of thing. But again, they give you more details as to adapting and managing oneself. That would be at 11.00G3, B4. So you can go check those out. Again, if you go to the actual listing on the SSA.gov site, these linkages to the further definitions of these are all links. So you don't have to go search for 11.00. So I really think you should go here to get those rather than necessarily writing down what I'm saying to you. But this gives you kind of the general idea about myasthenia gravis and if you're going to prevail on a listing. Again, if you don't prevail on a listing, which would often happen if it's evident on initial application, you could win on initial. Otherwise, you'll probably have to go on further with your battle with the SSA for your benefits. But you can win the listing at any spot in the whole journey, even at an ALJ hearing. But if you don't prevail on that, and I know for many of us lawyers, we don't just fight for a listing. We put down the listing, but we fight as well. We have to. The whole battle forward, you have to fight for every way you might have to be forced to win it. So we fight under the RFC, residual functional capacity arguments too, which is the one that looks at all the medical records and decides what they say about what you can and cannot do day to day, physically, mentally, etc. And that's kind of like threading a needle and looking for a needle in a haystack sometimes, because the doctors are often not very articulate about those kind of things. They simply talk about blood work and maybe some of the things in the listings. But if you find that your doctor hasn't opined, or maybe he or she finds that he doesn't really describe the things that are in a listing, but he thinks you do meet a listing, he could put together a report and just say, I think this would be listing. I'm looking at the listing level, 11.12 myasthenia gravis, and I believe she meets A, or I believe she means B, or I believe she means C, or more, one or more of the above. So definitely use that to your advantage. Okay. And everyone with myasthenia gravis, I wish you improved health. And I definitely wish you success on your claim, with or without an attorney or a rep. Okay. You deserve it.